I headed back to SideQuest Games on the hunt for Sega. I recently got a power-based converter and got back into collecting Sega MasterSystem cartridges, so I had to head back down to SideQuest Games to check out what they had. It's fitting because there's so much awesome stuff at SideQuest Games that it's impossible to do in one video. They also have this giant Halo Master Chief head. I also love checking out their NES and Super Nintendo games and see if anyone has traded in anything good. Alright, getting started on one of their many Sega cases. Over here they have some Japanese region GameGear games, including Psychic World, a game I don't know a lot about that I'm going to have to look into. Recently, the Sega GameGear has been known to have really chronic, bad, leaky capacitors, so it's really cool to see a game system that's had the capacitors replaced. And over here they have one with a Mick Will mod for $350. And I used to have one of these back in the days, a Master Gear converter to play MasterSystem games on the GameGear. Over here they have the GameGear TV tuner, $35 loose. Really cool. Down here they got Elf for MasterSystem for $100 and eSWAT for $40. June is Pride Month, and Transmot wants to remind you that Transbot lives matter. I need to start collecting for Sega My Card. They're so cool. There's Shinobi for $35 and Alex Kidd Lost Stars for $40. There's Cloudmaster for $40 and Raston for $60. I really don't know that much about the Sega Master System library, and I really need to check it out. Down here they have a Sega Genesis Mini for $75. Magical Earth Ray Knight on Saturn for $550. Night Warriors, $85 in the long box. Street Fighter the Movie the Game for $50. This is the good stuff, getting down to the Japanese Sega Saturn. Dragon Force for $150. King of Fighters with RAM card for $40. Darkstalkers, Vampire Saviors, $65, and Marvel Superheroes. And down here, Samurai Spirits 4 with a RAM cart. An import adapter back there. And Initial D for Sega Saturn. They have a region modded Sega Saturn for $400 and a Saturn Virtua Stick in the box. Moving on to the expensive case. They have a selection of 3DO games and a selection of Atari Jaguar games. Some Sega CD games, Crisscross Will Make You Jump. Sega CD for $400 and CDX for $800. I just realized I forgot to look at those Saturn and Sega CD long box games because I was too focused on these Sega Master System games such as Quartet and Rambo. Shooting Gallery, an amazing light gun game, and Space Harrier. Zaxxon 3D. I'm thinking about getting into Sega 3D glasses if I could find one. The Sega Scope 3D. Here is Pro Wrestling. Sadly not Goku Gudompe Dump Matsumoto Wrestling. Penguin Land for $28. Don't know much about that. Hang On and Safari Hunt. Great Golf. Global Defense. I also collect CRTs, so I'm into light gun games that only work on CRTs. Missile Defense 3D, and Choplifter for $10. And a Sega Master System, no manuals, but has the box and the gun for $230. Over here they have a Sega Nomad for $350 and a Power Base Converter for $120. Contra Hardcores for $145. Moving on to the Sega Genesis case, Forgotten Worlds, Golden Axe, and Retro Bits Mega Man The Wily Wars and Phantasy Star 4. Up here they have Phantasy Star 2, 3, and Shadowrun. Shadowrun getting up there in price. Shining Force, and Sonic Not For Resale the Hedgehog. Loose carts they have Earthworm Jim, Sparkster, Streets of Rage, Phantasy Star 2, Truxton, and Shining Force 2. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Wise 3 with a bad cover art, and Castlevania Bloodlines for $75, and Alien Soldier for $299. I believe that's a European and Japan exclusive. JVC made a Sega CD and Genesis combo for karaoke. Then there's the modded Genesis 1, modded Genesis 2, and then over there they have a original OG Japanese Sega Mega Drive Mark I. I need to get one of those. Virtual Fighter Not For Resale, $18. Doom for $32X. And moving on to the loose Genesis carts. Some of these had pretty scruffy looking labels, but there's some really good deals to be found. Clay Fighter for $8. Earthworm Jim on the Genesis, $25. That's the best way to play that game. Some scruffy looking copies of Golden Axe. A really scruffy Sonic and Knuckles. But you know what? Broken label games still play fine. Star Trek The Next Generation, Strider, Super Street Fighter 2. I actually collect games to play them, not to have them sit on the shelf and look pretty. So I actually have a fair amount of respect for scruffy looking games. TMNT Tournament Fighter, $14. Vector Man, $10. That's a cool game. And ToeJam and Earl and Thunder Force 2. Actually, ToeJam and Earl Panic on Funkatron, but Thunder Force 2, one of the best shooters ever made, $22. Moving on to the case games. These are mostly in the box, and I sort of think that the Sega Genesis really sort of lends to this because they had such really awesome big plastic boxes. Last Battle, Fake Fists of the North Star, no head explosions, what's the point? So many sports games, but then again, the Genesis is known for that. Here's DJ Boy, $25, but with a spine but no cover, really weird. Sonic 2, Sega Classic Sonic, OG Sonic, and moving on to the Sega GameGear games. You know, I was actually really impressed with how cheap the Sega GameGear games, and I might want to get into collecting Sega GameGear. There's a lot of cool stuff. There's GameGear Aladdin for $10. I should do a video on GameGear games that were also on the Genesis, like GameGear Dynamite Heady for 14. Perfect example. Garfield for Marcy Chan. Caught in the act. 8-bit Mortal Kombat 2, also on the Genesis. Again, I absolutely need to do that. I don't have a GameGear, but I do have various emulators. Mortal Kombat for GameGear, $10. The Mew Mini is actually really cool in that it's a handheld emulator, so it feels like a portable system, because it is. GameGear Shinobi 2. I think this might be a Japanese version. Surprised to see it over here with the American games. Green Dog, Pac-Man. Alright, coming up is one of the dumbest things I've ever done. I wanted to click my phone to focus on it, but instead I clicked the game to try and bring it in focus instead of clicking on my phone to record. Oh well. At least I thought that was amusing, so I kept it in. Sonic, $10. Sonic 2, $10. Again, these are really good games. And Sonic Triple Trouble 14, which is an original game, not a port. Virtual Fighter Animation, 16. Star Wars US Gold on GameGear. Again, there's all these versions of these games that I don't know much about. Streets of Rage for GameGear, $25. I do believe Yuzo Koshiro was involved in that. And Streets of Rage 2 for GameGear for $25. Magical Taruruto-kun. I believe that might be related to Decap Attack. Japanese House of Tarot. Don't know much about that. Woody Pop, Donald Duck. And way in the back, GameGear Shinobi. Very cool. Moving on to the accessories, there's the MasterSystem pad with no pause button. The OG Fatboy Genesis pad for $20. I love that pad. And the Street Fightin' 6-button Genesis pad for $30. And then they have the crappy-tastic third-party controller for your guests, but no one would actually use it. Seeing some various multi-taps. Sega Saturn 3D Knights gamepad for $65. Down here is the pile of discount Sega Light phasers and the Sega control sticks. Moving on to the Dreamcast. I am glad that I got many of my Dreamcast games back in the day and held on to them. Marvel vs. Capcom, $100. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, $200. Project Justice, $280. Not to brag, but I'm glad that I got mine. Samba de Domingo, $70. Sonic Adventure, $60. Sonic Shuffle, $75. The Party Game. And the black Sega Sports Dreamcast of coolness, $200. Some various turbo chip games for the TurboGrafx 16. They got Military Madness, Legendary Axe, JJ and Jeff. Blazin' Lasers, Devil's Crush, Impossible, and Fantasy Zone. Down here, they have a never-opened TurboGrafx 16 Mini for $300. Turbo Taps, including the PC Engine Turbo Tap, or the PC Engine Tap, and a Turbo Express with the box for $800. I wonder if that's been recapped, but $800. It wouldn't be a trip to the retro game store without checking out the NES. The Adventure of Tom Sawyer. I don't know much about that. I know Squaresoft made one. I think it stayed in Japan. Weird that there's 2 Tom Sawyer games. Chippendale's Rescue Ranger, $18, one of my favorite Capcom games. And that's saying something. The US version of Bionic Commando, very affordable. The Japanese version, hellishly expensive. Sunsoft's Batman for $15. You know what? This one's gonna finally come home with me. You're mine. Baby Jesus, the video game. Next to Karnov, the fire-breathing Russian. Miss Pac-Man by Tengen. Ninja Gaiden, Ninja Gaiden 2, and Ninja Kid. You need to look into Ninja Kid and see if it's related to Ninja Jamaru-kun, or they're just ninja games made in the 1980s. Red Racer, Rampage, Hubert, Pro Wrestling, Super Contra, a little game called Super Mario Brothers, maybe you've heard of it. Trojan, Top Gun, very cool. Defender 2, weirdly a game that Iwata coded for back when Nintendo was trying to sell the NES to Atari. Go-Go 13, Home Alone 2, Life Force by Konami, great game. Russian Attack, nothing like stabbing communists. Snake's Revenge, Hideo Kojima was not involved. And RC Pro-Am, that's a rare game! Moving on to the US Super Nintendo, there's Mario Paint for $10, Mortal Kombat 2 for $18, Mortal Kombat 3 for $20. This is back when Nintendo allowed blood, because Sega outsold them by a ridiculously wide margin. A Blockbuster video rental copy of Cool Spot. Joe and Mac, Caveman Ninja. Of course, I got the Joe and Mac trilogy by Retrobit. On this trip, I came home with Sunsoft's Batman, Sega's Choplifter, and Missile Defense 3D. I'm going to start doing 60-second reviews where I put together short reviews of these games, so check it out. SideQuest Games is a really great retro video game store staffed by some really awesome people, and I'm pretty lucky to live so close to it. Gonna definitely check it out in the future. This has been 8-Bit Joystick. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help me out if you consider subscribing, because I'm trying to get over the 1,000 mark. This has been 8-Bit Joystick. Stay awesome, play retro.